I spent $500,000 on cars, and here's what I learned. Now, before you YouTube heroes out there get all judgy and drop a bunch of stuff in the comments, chill out, all right? Let me explain, let me tell you what I learned. And before we get into it, I wanna set a couple caveats in motion. First and foremost, I paid for every single one of these vehicles in cash. I had a pink slip for it, meaning I held the title for each of these vehicles. It was 9 total vehicles since about 2020. Okay, I didn't spend the entire $500,000 on each vehicle because I traded them in and they had residual value. And I didn't buy these vehicles for YouTube. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, another YouTuber, he's just trying to buy this for YouTube. Not true. So those are the caveats. Let's get into what I learned from buying $500,000 in vehicles though. So there's 3 key lessons that I learned buying all of these vehicles, spending $500K. The third and final tip I'll give to you at the end of the video, it is the biggest thing that I learned throughout the entire process, and it's the best one, so feel free to skip there now. The first lesson that I learned though, however, is to buy reliable vehicles. So we'll start there. Buy reliable vehicles that hold value. And if you want to swap out your cars frequently, this is gonna be the most important thing to do. Don't buy a brand new, 5 Series BMW that there's a gajillion of them produced and they're overpriced to begin with. You're gonna lose your shirt in depreciation. So the first thing that I learned quickly is to buy reliable vehicles, because then they don't lose a ton of value and I can resell them pretty easily, and you don't lose nearly as much money as you would if you had bought a more expensive luxury type vehicle that doesn't hold value. So I learned this lesson the hard way. I was on a good run. I bought a Jeep Gladiator. I bought, after my Jeep Gladiator, I bought a used certified pre-owned 330i BMW. After that, I ended up buying a Jeep 392, which was a $85,000 Jeep. Very, very cool vehicle. That thing held value super well. And then after the Jeep, I jumped from the Jeep into a Lexus GX460. That also held value super well. I resold that for basically what I paid for it. And when I resold that is when I messed up. I purchased a 2023 Toyota Tundra Platinum. That was the first iteration of a new full redesign of the Toyota. As you might know, it had the hybrid powertrain in it. It had the iForce Max motor. Very, very cool truck. I really liked it. But the issue became once there started being released information with the 3.4, 3.5 liter power plant that has been in all the new gen Toyotas that were basically grenading themselves due to machining debris in the actual engines, and they were spinning bearings and having all kinds of problems. So the value of that vehicle tanked quite a bit when I resold it. So I learned there to buy vehicles that have a reputation for reliability. So that's my first tip. Let's get into the second tip. Tip number 2, and the second lesson that I learned in this adventure of buying expensive vehicles, is that more expensive vehicles are not always better than cheaper vehicles, like the $48,000 Toyota 4Runner that I'm sitting in right now. I learned this because when I first started making more money than I had been making when I was younger, I immediately went to a vehicle that I had always wanted. And something that I always kind of idolized was having a V8 and a 4x4, and this brought me to the Jeep 392. Now, the Jeep 392 was a really cool vehicle to own. I had a ton of fun with that thing. I don't want to speak badly about it, but it wasn't a great daily driver. It wasn't something that I wanted to own for a long time. It wasn't something that made sense once my family started to grow. It just wasn't a great fit. And it was also really expensive, and I kind of felt silly having such an expensive vehicle. It just kind of felt odd. And I will say that I learned during that experience, as soon as I started making more money, I went out and bought that $85,000 Jeep, and luckily it held value super well. I barely spent anything to own that vehicle, which is awesome, but I learned that the quality in that vehicle was not nearly as good as the quality in my vehicle that followed that vehicle, which was my 2023 Lexus GX460. That vehicle still to this day is my favorite that I've owned. The 4Runner here is kind of creeping up on it. I really do like this thing, but my Lexus GX460 that I purchased for like $20,000 less than the Jeep after I bought the Jeep was way better built, way more comfortable, way more quiet, and really capable off-road still. I really didn't, need for more off-road. So I learned that more expensive is not always better. Now, with that said, I do still want a Porsche 911, so don't hold me to that. Let's get to lesson number 3 though. This is the most important thing. All right, now this last lesson I have for you is a bit of a personal one. So I hope you'll hear me out. When I first started buying these expensive cars, I knew what I was doing. I knew how to buy reliable cars, but there was a little bit a little part of me that, really just wanted to spend some money on an expensive car for some reason. I had started making more money, had the opportunity. I had always loved cars. So naturally I was like, man, I need like the sickest car. I need a car that like when I pull up, it just, it's impressive or whatever. And, not that I'm typically someone who cares a ton about what people think. Obviously I have a YouTube channel. I put it all out there. It's not a big part of, who I am, but I loved cars and I wanted to buy something cool and impressive. And, in that process, I really learned, this is the key lesson. What I learned is, buy what's right for you. Buy what you love. Buy a vehicle that you love. Don't buy something because you want others to think, man, he drives a Mercedes, or man, he drives a BMW. It's not worth it. And honestly, those vehicles are not always better than my trusty Toyota 4Runner here that I love way more than my BMW 330i. Not that my 330i was a bad vehicle, but I love this way more than that, and my Audi S4. it has more character. I just personally, for me, again, buy what's right for you. For me, the Toyota 4Runner fits my lifestyle, what I want to do. I want to go off-roading. I want to go mountain biking. I want to put my dirt bikes on the back and go off-roading and go trail riding with my son. It just fits my life better. And yeah, when people see me pull up in this thing, they don't think, man, that guy's crushing it. But what they don't see is that this thing's paid off and I don't have a payment on it. And I love that. So again, I'll say this again, buy what's right for you. Now, when I first started this whole process, yeah, I bought the 392. It was a lot of money and I kind of just wanted it for me, and I thought it'd be cool to kind of have a sick vehicle. But in that process, when I was buying that vehicle, the funny thing is that I actually test drove a Toyota 4Runner. I brought my whole family to the Toyota dealership. I had my mom, my stepdad, my wife, my son, I think, was even with me. And we test drove a Toyota 4Runner. And you know how 4Runners are. I mean, they're not the fanciest vehicles on the inside. And my whole family was kind of like, we don't really like it, right? And that just crushed me because I love this thing and I was gonna buy it. And I think, not that I let my family talk me out of it, but there was a part of me that was like, oh man, I don't know, is it that great? Am I just kind of overhyping this thing? And as I grew up over the years, and this is probably almost, 4 years ago now, as I've grown up and learned a lot and thought a lot, we change over time. And I hope you all can relate to that. As I grew over time, I learned that, man, I value the simplicity. I value the reliability. I value that it does what I want it to do. My parents and my wife don't know how reliable it is. They don't know how good the resale is. They don't think about that stuff. So that's I should go with what's right in my gut. And that's what I did. I got this thing. I love it. Again, like I said, it's competing with my Lexus GX 460 for my favorite vehicle that I've ever owned. And yeah, I just love this thing. And yeah, there's an element of I buy vehicles because I like to switch them out and things like that. And I like to test new vehicles for the channel, and that's true. But now that the channel's growing, I get sponsorships from auto manufacturers. I don't necessarily have to, buy a vehicle to test it. Speaking of, Lexus GX 550 Overtrail Plus is coming to the channel in November. So subscribe if you want to check that video out. We're going to test it against the 4Runner. Going to do a slip test, do all kinds of cool stuff. Not going to give it all away, but subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. But yeah, anyway, so that's really what I have for you. At the end of the day, the most important thing, buying all these vehicles, testing all these different, cars and trucks, I would just ultimately say buy what's right for you and don't buy what you think looks cool. Think about what you're going to do with your vehicle. Think about what you care about. I would highly advise you to look at resale and reliability because we really should all care about that. You want your vehicle to run, and when you resell your vehicle, you don't necessarily want it to, drop in value by a ton. You want to have minimize your financial investment in your vehicle. And by doing this the way that I did it, I was able to invest a lot of money over the last 5 years because I wasn't leasing these vehicles. I was buying them and reselling them for nearly what I paid. So my total monthly expenditure on these vehicles was probably at the end of the day less than, I want to say, $400 a month in vehicle expense. And now ultimately it's pretty much zero. My 4Runner is depreciating maybe $200 a month, depending on how long I keep it. And the maintenance costs are pretty low. So stuff like that is just stuff to pay attention to. You can own vehicles that you want, but it's better to buy them. Don't lease them. And, just make sure your monthly expense on that vehicle is not too much when you look at what you buy it for and what you resell it for. I can make more videos about this stuff, but that's what I wanted to leave you with today. Buy what's right for you, do what's right in your gut, and don't buy it for anybody else. If you like this video, please subscribe, tap that like button, man. I appreciate it if you're checking out the channel for the first time. Awesome, happy to have you, and I hope you come back, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks again, peace.